YouTube, welcome back. I'm getting ready to get started on my next project. The next one I'm going to be making is I'm going to be making an animated coffin. I'm going to be building one of the older style weathered wood, almost diamond shaped style coffins where the lid is going to open up and close by itself with, just like a little small low rotation 110 motor. But what I'm going to be doing with that, I'm not just going to be building just a basic normal little coffin to sit on the ground. I want to give it the illusion that it's being pushed up out of the ground by a tree that's been growing next to it for a long time. So I'm going to actually be building it not only just to kind of sit like this, but it's also going to kind of sit at an angle a little bit like that. Kind of looking like the tree is growing next to it and kind of pushing it slowly, kind of like this right here. Now, I'm not going to be building the whole casket and digging a hole in the yard, all stuff. I'm going to be building this thing to sit flat on the ground, but have the illusion that it's still half in, half out of the ground. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let's get started. I got started this morning, pulled the top piece off just to check to make sure everything's kind of holding. Everything seems to be holding pretty good. I'll probably cut a couple small pieces of pink foam to stick right here, just add a little extra reinforcement. Now the next step is going to be to flip it upside down, lay it on top of there, trace out the new lid essentially. Now the one thing to keep in mind when you're for these sides here that I cut, when I cut them, obviously I just cut them one, to the size I needed, and then obviously I made my cut here. But when you go to actually put it on, say on that piece of plywood there, you have to flip them upside down. So if you don't flip them upside down, you're not going to have the taper properly, and then the line right there, it's going to be straight up, and it's not going to allow you to get the pitch that you're looking for. So you just got to keep in mind that when you do these pieces, it's okay to cut them normally and then cut this line normally, but then make sure you flip them upside down before you glue them to whatever you're going to be putting them on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by getting that next lid cut and see how well this thing's. All right, the next step is going to be to kind of create like a wood grain kind of look on this. Now, I kind of messed up a little bit when I put that piece on top of my foam and was tracing it out. I should have traced it out to where this side would have been up. It'd have been a lot easier for me to see what I'm doing, but I already started cutting it out before I realized my error. So it is what it is. But once it's all painted, you're not going to know it anyways. It's just, just with all the extra stuff on here, I got to really pay attention to what I'm doing with my lines. I've never done a prop where I had to do any kind of wood grain before. So this is going to be kind of like my first attempt kind of doing this. I mean, I've seen it done a few times. I've watched a couple of videos. I know the basic concept of it, so I'm just going to kind of go for it. I'm going to start off with using a soldering gun to kind of create like some lines kind of thing. And then I'm going to use a torch and a little bit of water and burn a few spots to kind of make it look like knots. Then I'm going to take some really coarse sandpaper and then kind of go over it to kind of really give it like a textured, kind of rough look to it to kind of make it look like it's really being aged. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, the caulking is pretty much about 90% dry. It's dry enough to where I can, start working with it without it getting all over me. So I'm getting ready to start working on the lid. You can also see I finished doing the wood texture on the rest of the box all the way around. Now, my original plan of putting the hinge inside here on top of that isn't going to work after I kind of thought about it a little bit more. For this to pivot really good, it has to pivot from the outside way out here. If I have it pivoting, say like all the way here, what's going to do is, unless I had a hinge that caused it to kind of lift up kind of deal, like almost like a kitchen cabinet kind of hinge, it's not going to want to lift because it's just going to essentially dive into into this portion right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hinge. You see I made a mark right here. I'm going to lightly cut this out so the hinge can sit flush. And then I'm going to go ahead and screw it in place. And then I'm going to cut myself a little piece of wood that's going to go all the way across this whole piece right here. That's going to be attached to the hinge. And then that's what's going to allow me to take the lid. I'm going to actually attach the lid to that little piece of wood. That's going to give me a little bit of something to anchor, the motor to. I'll be able to put some like roofing nails up through the bottom of it into the foam, so it locks it in place with some caulking. And that should allow me to get a nice lift out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on that. One thing I had to do real quick, because of the way I have, the wood sitting on top, so this way I can make sure I get a nice good, pitch out of it, is I just took my router. You see, I just kind of routed this down and made a pocket for that wood to sit in. And I just made a few holes where the screws stick through, because what I want to do is I want to be able to put some caulking around those screw heads. Plus also where you saw me drill the holes, I'm going to take like roofing nails, push roofing nails through there, and I want to be able to put caulk on that. That's what's really going to help hold this lid to the piece of wood. You can see where I router out, it still allows everything to sit, nice and flush and even, and then I'll still get a lift that. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of trimming. You can see I started creating like these tapers here. I'm probably going to taper a little bit more as I get it on there. After I get it on and the glue's all dry, then I'll do a little bit of fine trimming here, a little trimming there, until I can get it to where it opens and closes nice and smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and start running some caulking, get this glued in, and then at that point I got to let it sit and fully dry before I can do anything else. And then the other thing is y'all saw that I was cutting that notch out with a knife instead of just routering it out. Because what I want to do is I want to take the piece, I thinned it out really thin. I'm going to take some caulking and I'm going to glue that back into place here after everything's said and done. So this way it kind of helps hide the hinge a little bit and kind of makes my side look better. Which that's the reason why I opted to cut it out nice and carefully instead of just routering it out, so I can utilize that piece so you don't see that ugly hinge there no more. Just a little trick. And picked up my that metal that I'm gonna use, that flat stock for that 4-bar lift system that I was talking about. But what I'm gonna do before I actually start cutting on this, I have some excess clear Lexan, polycarbonate plastic, and what it is, I just ripped myself some strips. And what I do is I'm gonna essentially build my rig out of this first, so I can do all my drill all my holes, kind of get an idea of how long everything needs to be. Take my torch, heat the plastic up so I can make this bend, so I can make sure that when I put the bend in here that everything's still going to work like I want it to and all that. And if everything looks really good, I got all my sizes good, I like the way it is, I'll go ahead and I'll transfer all my stuff that I made from these and put them onto these. This way, if I have any oops, I can always just cut a few more of these pieces until I get it just right the way I want it to before wasting that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Pretty much the basic mock-up done for my 4-link, my 4-bar kind of lift rig right here. You can see I got 2 verticals, 2 horizontals. They're evenly spaced apart, so this way it doesn't change my angle. Because you can actually, if you were to take these and put these at a slightly different pitch or whatever, you can actually make it to where this right here can taper out and that kind of stuff. But I want it to go as straight up as possible. So the basic principle behind this is once I put the motor here and it lifts up, you can see where this right here is just going to go at a nice, even, straight up and down. So what my plan is obviously to put the hand on here and have the hand so the lid sits on top of that. Now this one's going to intentionally be at a small angle outward because I want it to follow the taper of the coffin here. I don't want the hand to be sitting like this when it really needs to be sitting like that, like it's flat against it. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these pieces, start drilling my holes, make my bends in it. I'm going to leave the top one a little extra long just in case I got to make a counterweight to help with the lifting, assisting of it. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show kind of what I'm doing right here. Obviously, you see I got my rig made. You see it moves up and down. Now, obviously, it's not gonna move that much. And the 3/4 right here is representing the top of my coffin. So I wanna make sure that it doesn't go above my coffin because I don't want you to see like all this linkage right here. I literally want, because when I have the hand on here and I have the, something like that, I just literally want it to go just enough, and that's it. All right, I'm pretty much done with the rig. The reindeer motor was pretty much about wore out. It'd get to a certain point, bind up, and do that whole thing where they kind of change their directions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be able to use that, but I did have this one right here. It's a nice little gear-driven motor, slow rotation, high torque. It is 12 volts, so I'll have to run it off my little power supply here, but a lot of my LED lighting that's going to be my display is 12 volt anyways. I went ahead and put a counterweight on it anyways, even though I don't think I really need it. But you can see with the counterweight, it'll actually kind of hold it just about, So even though it's not really needed because of the high torque, it's just going to give it just that little extra assistance to lift the lid up, so I don't have to worry about any kind of potential binding and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and hook the linkage onto it real fast and kind of show you how it operates. Okay, so you can see it's I got a nice smooth motion here, up down. There's no jagged kind of looking to it. It's really nice and smooth and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to work out just fine. But obviously, I know there's much more easier ways I could have gone about lifting this lid up. I mean, after all, it is just a styrofoam lid. But the reason I kind of did it this way is because I really didn't want the lid to be attached to my lifting rig of whatever I decided to do. The reason why is because if, say, for some reason, I have a set of LED lights in there or an incandescent bulb, and all of a sudden it stops working. Well, then, now I have this thing in the dark. It's nighttime. Now I got to lift the lid up to a certain point, stop it. I'm trying to use a flashlight, and I'm trying to get in there and unhook whatever my deal is that I have holding it to it, whether it be a cotter key or a clip or whatever it is. And then I got to put it all back together, all while it's in the dark, that whole 9 yards. This right here will allow me to literally just walk up. Even if this rig is moving and doing its thing, I can walk right up, lift the lid up, do what I need to do, set the lid back down, and never even have to shut this off because it's not attached to it. The other reason why it's very complex looking is I also had to think about my space issues. When you look at the coffin, I didn't really make it super tall in the area where the hand's going to be, and it's also not super long, and it's also not very wide, and I'm going to have a skeleton inside there. So I needed something that was going to be able to lift the rig up, wasn't going to be attached to the lid, clear the skeleton, and also fit within the space that I want to fit in and still be able to hide it. So it's a very small, complex little design, but I think it's going to work out just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mount it inside the coffin, put a piece of metal on here, mount the hand onto it, and give it a couple test runs and see how well it works. All right, you ready to do a test run? See, this is what I was referring to. I could just, if I got to get in here, I got to make an adjustment, maybe fix some fabric, a light, all kinds of stuff. This can continue to run. And when I'm done, set it back on and walk away. All right, now I'm going to show kind of the tight restraints that I'm working with in here. So if I lift this up, you see how, working inside here, I got the skeleton, I got the arm in here. This area is really not that tall to begin with. So trying to get, all kinds of different ideas in here. This was what I felt was going to work really good because the counterweight clears him just fine. The motor clears him just fine. I am going to lift him up just a little bit more like this. So this way I can dress this up so you don't see that, just in case you're at just the right angle, but for the most part you really can't see it. And you see where I have the arms that bend to follow the shape of the coffin. And then I got the hand here. All tight and compact. And okay, I was going to call it done and end the video here, but I'm going to be honest with you, it just doesn't look complete to me. It really looks like it needs to have something around the base of it, you know, maybe something that looks like grass or disturbed soil or something of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and try to create some kind of broken ground at the base of it using like maybe expansion foam or something like that, and see how this goes. All right, I went ahead and pulled this in last night, let it dry. When I pulled it in last night, I didn't like the green that was on there, felt it was too light. So I found another green that I had that's a little darker, but now that it's dry, it's kind of too dark. So when it was actually still wet, it actually looked pretty good, but now that it's dry, not so much. So I went to the hobby store to see what I could find for fake grass and things of that nature, and I found these right here. And they're like a 9x9, almost 10x10. And what I'm planning on doing here is, see how they have the multiple, ones on here. I'm gonna leave every two, and then cut it, two, cut it, two, cut it, and then I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna glue it right on the edge right here. So this way it gives me a little bit of coverage up to a certain point, and then it'll also make a nice little transition from here to the grass on my lawn, essentially. So I'll be cutting these and gluing those in place. The other thing I will be doing is I picked up this from Home Depot. I've used this before for props. I made one with a crypt. It's like a very flexible, polywall, panel. They use it for like bathrooms and stuff like that. But what I like about it is it's extremely flexible. I mean, you can fold this stuff, you can bend it, you can do whatever you want with this stuff. And it's really nice stuff to work with. So what my plan is I want to make sure that doesn't come apart, but I also don't want to make it attached to this. So what my plan is, I'm going to take the coffin, put the coffin on top here, put that around it, glue that to this piece right here. So this way what I'll do is when I go to pull it apart or things like that, that'll have some reinforcement on it. The reason why I do not want to attach it to this is because if, say, like wherever I put it in my yard, say my yard has a little dip in it right there and I can't do anything about it because that's just the best spot for it or whatever like that. I don't want my grass to look like it's suspended in the air. That just will kind of ruin the look. So this way I'll have a little flexibility to bend it, move it up and down a little bit. I can push it down, just take like a metal piece of wire that you won't see and just shove it down into the ground and hold it down, that kind of thing. So that's why I don't want to make it fixed to the coffin. So, but my plan is to go ahead and put the coffin on here, glue that to it, and then I got to decide, do I want to cut the section out that goes around the coffin to make it easier to get it on and off, or is it going to be just as easy to get on and off if I leave it all in one piece? So that's what I'm going to be attempting right now. I'm going to try to save as much of this as possible for a future project. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Went ahead and got the little LED strip up underneath the lid. Now what I had to do is I had to take some of that landscape fabric that I used for another project to kind of dim it down because it was too intense. So I just put a couple layers of that on there just to kind of dim it down a little bit. You see I got the wire ran down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it to where the wires, I'm going to connect them together so I don't have two separate wires. They're going to come out the side here. And then when I go to put it inside the base here, just to help keep this thing from, collecting water, I'm going to make a series of just little notches throughout. I'm going to make sure there's a notch right here. So when I go to put it in, I can slide the wires through there. So when I have it plugged in, I can have the wires coming out this direction, because you'll be looking at that side of it, when you're actually walking through the display. So you're going to be on this side of it, so you won't see the wires coming out that end. So I'm going to go ahead and get some notches made, and I'm going to go ahead and get it set up for the final. Okay, I think I can say that this one is done now. Like I said in the beginning of the video, it just felt unfinished. It felt that it wasn't done. It wasn't what it should be. Now I'm more happy with the finished result of it. I think it came out pretty good. I like the grass. So, when I set it in the yard, I'll find a place that has a little more grass, not so many dead areas. So that transition will be even better than it is now. And you see areas where it looks like the dirt is kind of coming up. Now those are details that nobody's really going to see because it's going to be in the dark, but it's something I see and something I wanted to make sure was there. But what I'm going to do is once it gets dark, I will turn it on so you see what it looks like with the LED inside there. I'm also going to have a blue light out here to act as ambient moonlight, just to add to the character of it. So when it gets dark, we will see the finish. Okay, I went ahead and I brought it into the shop here so I can control the lighting a little bit better. But this is pretty much what they're going to be seeing. Obviously, there'll be much more lights throughout the entire display. There'll be all kinds of ambient light floating around to kind of help light it up a little bit more. This is just one light that I just threw on there real fast to kind of give you the idea of what they're pretty much going to be seeing, kind of like a blue moonlight kind of thing shining on it. I do like the way the grass came out. I think that was definitely the finished touch that this needed to really make it look like a completed prop. You'll have to leave me a comment and tell me what you think. But overall, I think I'm much more happy with it. I think I consider this one to be done. Thanks for watching.